Welcome to the Private Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Storm, here to help you unlock the mind, business, and spirit of your private practice success. So whether you're just starting out or you're looking to grow, this is the place for you if you really want to create a thriving private practice. Before we dive in, I want to share something that can really make a difference in your business. Imagine having an expert in your pocket, someone available on demand whenever you need guidance. Well, that's exactly what my new program, Practice Momentum, offers. With over 30 years of experience at your fingertips, you can now get the support you need whenever you need it. Curious? Head over to brooklynstorm.com to learn more. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Super pleased that you're here. So much has been happening. Very sorry that I didn't get an opportunity to record on Saturday. I just had a really bad migraine. I caught up with somebody in the morning. We catch up online most Saturdays, and we talk all things business and marketing and stuff like that. It's really lovely. I did that, but as we were talking, I was saying to her, I really feel like maybe I'm starting to get a bit of a headache or something. And yeah, I got off the call and then was just like full migraine city. And then it just kind of like took me out. I don't know if you get them, but sometimes they can be really challenging at the best of times because of that ADD. I don't like noise. I like silence. I don't like bright lights and things like that anyway. But when I've got a migraine, it's like even more. I really just need to be in a dark place, silent. So that's what kind of happened there. But anyway, we're going to dive into today's episode right now, and then at the end I'll give you some updates about other things that are happening sort of behind the scenes in my business, like we always talk about. So the thing that I want to talk about today is something that's come up in our community. It's a little bit of fear, a little bit of worry really around the emergence of all these new services that have been funded to provide free mental health, like counselling, psychology, things like that, to the community in Australia. And the fears and the worries that I'm hearing are from women in private practice saying, I'm going to lose my clients. Who's going to come and pay to work with me when they can just go down the road, and, all of this. And there's a lot of sort of talk about it and a lot of drama. So I thought, how can I contribute to this conversation in a way that will be empowering and helpful? And I thought, do you know what? Just be yourself, speak your truth. So that's what I'm going to do. So I guess the first thing to understand is that while you might be seeing these businesses and services pop up on your social media feeds and things like that, know that they're not new, okay? They might look new. They might say, oh, this is a new service that's coming out in October, or, things like that. But when I say they're not new, what I mean is fully funded mental health has been around for a very long time. In fact, decades. It's not new. It may feel new to you, perhaps, if this is the first you're hearing about it. But honestly, even if you go back to, when was it? Was it the late 90s, early 2000s when the mental health care plans first came in, right? And, psychologists got onto Medicare and social workers got onto Medicare and things like that. They're providing bulk billing mental health services, right? I was one of those people. But if you're just hearing about it now, you might be panicking, especially if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you're in private practice already and you're struggling, right? So it's very scary to think, oh, well, this other company over here, they've got all this money and they've got all this funding, they're going to do it free and they're going to take my clients. No one will work with me. Who's going to want to pay when they can get it for free? I want you to know, while these services have been around for a very long time, free mental health services, it's not really gotten in the way of people also having a private practice that allows them to see clients, that thrives, that flourishes, and that's profitable. Okay, so understand these things are not new, they've been around for a very long time. I want you also maybe to, just kind of think about who these services are for. So these services in the past have usually been for two cohorts, right? These free mental health services, they've usually been for one of two cohorts. Either they've been for people who are really, really struggling. They're in financial dire straits. They've got very complex backgrounds. By that I mean complex backgrounds like, legal complications, history of convictions, history of imprisonment, debt, addiction issues, drug use issues, things like that. What else? Really sort of low education that's become a barrier to them being able to get work. Literacy issues, homelessness, not having a license. Do you know what I mean? Like that's one cohort that these free services have often been created to support. And then the other cohort, which is more recent, and when I say recent, I'd say like maybe over the last 10 years, has been for, I guess, more the worried well. They're very clear that they're not crisis services. They're very clear that if you come along and you're expressing that you're in crisis and things like that, they'll kind of give you a little bit of help, but they're going to, triage you and send you off to probably one of those first services that we were just speaking about there. So what tends to happen is we've got these models, right, which can generally be considered to serve these kind of two populations, right? This second one over here, it's kind of designed to take the pressure off people accessing the free services who might not be in such dire straits financially or in such dire straits, clinically and things like that, to improve access to those services by the people who need them the most, okay? So that's historically how in Australia these two sort of, I don't know, let's call them cohorts or something like that, have been recognised. And then from there, funding has been made available through tenders, through government, things like that, for certain organisations or private practices, or do you know what I mean, to go and apply for those tenders, get the money, get the funding, deliver the services, right? Those things don't really have much bearing on your private practice, but I can appreciate why it feels really scary. I think it's going to feel scary for you if maybe, you're new to this world and you're new to business, the business side of private practice. It's going to feel scary because you're probably beginning to realize that there's maybe a huge learning curve that you're now on. And the thing is, it's like going up a roller coaster, but you don't know where the top is. It's just constant learning, right? And here we are with just another thing to learn about. And so when you don't know what you don't know, it creates a great fertile ground for fear and worry and anxiety. So I just want to dispel that for you now, okay? The other thing to understand about the model of, free mental health services, and there's lots of things to understand, but just another aspect that might be helpful for you to understand is that they tend to be generalist in nature, meaning that, you don't go there for one particular thing. What will usually happen is if you want to make an appointment, you can call up, they're going to ask you some screening questions, they're going to get you an appointment. So it doesn't really matter too much what might be going on for you in terms of your well-being and your mental health and, all those kinds of things. They will pretty much take most presentations, right? Most challenges, most problems, most symptoms are welcome at these spaces, right? They don't want to turn people away. Generally, again, there's as you know, there's confidentiality and there's risk of harm to self and others. So of course, with all those things in place, by and large, in general, they tend to be very generalist in their approaches. Okay. That's different to you. And then I guess another aspect to just kind of be aware of is that because they're funded, right, the funding doesn't last forever. Funding is for a finite period of time, by tenders. So typical funding can look like a pilot program that might go for 6, 12, 18 months, 3 years, right? Or once a pilot program's happened and, things have been cleaned up, tidied up, fixed, things like that, and then a, formal tender then comes out, then the funding might last for longer. The funding might last for a couple of years, or it might last for, 3 to 5 is pretty common. Usually 3 is pretty common. During that time with the funding, whoever's been successful with the tender has had to, in their tender application, talk about the costs that they anticipate incurring to deliver the service. And in part, it's that estimate of how much it's going to cost that business to deliver the service that determines the level of funding that they get, right? So this is why oftentimes, if you're a counsellor or a psychologist or a social worker and you want to go and work for an organisation that's got the funding to go and provide the free counselling, because on your heart to do that, and you're all about social justice and equity and all those kinds of things, which is absolutely beautiful. No judgment. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, if that's you, great. But the pay tends to be not fantastic. It's on par with maybe EAP rates. I mean, I'm aware of psychologists that were working for Headspace who had master's degrees and many years experience, and they were getting $60 a 60-minute session, right? So it tends to be lower funded, which may be totally fine if money is not why you do this, right? If your values are kind of over in a different space. So just understand that. And then the other thing that's really important to understand is those funding models, they also provide generally limited sessions, right? So it's you can go along and you can have a capped number of sessions as a client. And that differs from, tender to tender and model to model and all of that. And it's too complex to get into here, but it's enough for you to understand that it's capped, okay? They can't go there for as long as they want or as long as they need. And then lastly, I don't think I've ever seen a tender that didn't prescribe treatments or therapies or therapeutic interventions, whatever verbiage you want to use, that the people delivering the tenders needed to use, okay? And often you will see terms shared in these tenders that say, it must be evidence-based, it must be 6 sessions or 10 sessions or something like that, whatever the model is. But they will usually say it's got to be evidence-based. Now, here's the thing. Evidence-based, I'm going to I know this is going to be what I'm going to say. I know it's going to ruffle some feathers, but what's new, hey? This is my podcast. It happens. What I want to share with you about my take on evidence-based is a lot of the stuff that's evidence-based is recommended through funding bodies. So whether it's a government or whether it's an organisation that might be rolling out their own maybe organisational tender or contracts to deliver services, or maybe it's health insurers, they often will say that they want evidence-based interventions. And we think, they really care about the clients and making sure that the clients get the best outcomes and the best results and things like that. What I think is that back in the day, I was one of Australia's leading experts in CBT, and now I'm very vocal against CBT. But what I think is that historically, there was, struggling to say it for some reason. I don't know why. It's not like me, is it? And again, it's just totally my opinion, my understanding, But what I've gathered over the years and with my experience is that these evidence-based interventions were designed to see how quickly you could get somebody a shift, right? And it didn't really matter how big the shift was. It needed to be some kind of improvement or result. Didn't matter how big it was. It just needed to kind of happen as quickly as possible. And then, so was born the evidence-based narrative, okay? And the idea was very financial. And it came from a space of funders thinking, well, we don't want to have somebody just thinking we're in Germany now and having unlimited, psychotherapy sessions that go for 2 or 3 hours at a time, because that's going to bottleneck access. So we would rather give the tenders and give the work to people who were trained in short, sharp interventions that could get results within 6 appointments or 12 appointments or 10 appointments or 18 appointments and things like this. Now, I've got issues with that. I think it's, as somebody who spent so many years working in the Medicare model and doing entirely bulk billing up until the last, couple of years, what I saw was that while we were all required, and you get audited, right? You've got to prove that you were using the evidence-based models, but while we were using evidence-based models, and we were also doing things like giving clients, call it pre-intervention, post-intervention, screeners. I wouldn't say it was formal psychological testing, because it's not. It's just like using a screener you can download off the internet, usually the DAS-21 or something like that. We'll give them that sort of at the start, we'll give it at the end, and then hopefully we would see some improvement, and then the client would be on their way, or the client would be on their way if they ran out of time, right? If they ran out of their sessions. And what my experience was that when a client's coming and they've only got 6 sessions, and at the most maybe 10 appointments in a whole year, it's rarely enough. What happens is you scratch the surface and maybe they get some CBT or some motivational interviewing or something like that. They get a little bit of something to take the edge off. Maybe you're giving them strategies that they can use to take the edge off. Maybe those strategies, some common ones are, you're talking to them about mindfulness and breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation was really popular. Things like that. You might do those things. You might give them a crash course in identifying their thinking, how the thinking is causing a feeling, how that feeling's then resulting in a behavior, and how if you change the thinking, you change your feeling, you change the behavior. So it's like crash course in all this kind of stuff. And I believe that that approach will take the edge off somebody's mental health symptoms and experience, and suffering if they're suffering from symptoms and stuff like that. But it doesn't fix it, right? It doesn't resolve it. It doesn't go deep enough, far enough, further enough. Rarely gets to root causes of things, because you're only ever there putting, in my mind, band-aids on things. It's like, I don't know, they come in, they got a scratch on their arm, you're like, oh, let me have a quick look at that scratch on your arm. How's it feeling at the moment? What's your experience of it at the moment? Fill out this form to let me know. And then you talk to them, and then you're like, yeah, okay, just go and put this band-aid on it. And do you know what I mean? And you never really get into the root cause of what caused the wound. Do these wounds happen a lot? Is there a pattern here? Do you know what I mean? And the other reason that I think this, what I'm saying is valid, is because I saw so many times the same people coming back year on year on year on year, because the mental health care plan resets on the 1st of January every year. And so clients, their therapy would almost be disrupted. They'd get to the end of their funded session, so the rebates would run out, and then they would just be like, okay, well, I'll come back in January. And so you were constantly seeing, a lot of the time, familiar people. And it was like things weren't really getting resolved or worked on. They felt better in the moment because there was someone to listen, and I'm sure they felt like something was working for them. And, yes, people were showing that they were improving based on before and after screeners that we were all doing and things like that. So, it's got to have been effective on some level. But working in a funded model like that is, I don't think, great for clients, because I think that you're only just ever, as I said, you're just dealing with like the very surface thing, because you don't have time. And it would be unethical to like go deeper, right? So you're constantly just doing surface level stuff, but it gives them some short-term relief, I think. Many of them, I'm sure there has to be, like if you think about the bell-shaped curve and normal distribution curve, right, and the standard deviations and things like that, there are going to be some people that use those services and they never get better, or worse, actually, they deteriorate, right? And there's evidence to show that as well. And then there's going to be some people, and it's all they need, and they do get better and they do get well. But most clients sit under the big bell of the normal distribution curve. They're either going to slip backwards as a result of having this intervention, and they can slip backwards because, well, maybe bringing things up, actually starting to talk about things can make people, decline. It can cause the onset of new symptoms. It can cause an exacerbation of existing ones. Maybe they weren't ready yet. Maybe they're just learning stuff now that they didn't realize, and things like that. So there are definitely people that slip backwards in terms of their health and well-being from this model. But there's also people who get slight improvements. Okay. They're not fixed. They experience temporary slight improvements. So the reason that I'm, I guess, bringing this to your attention is because I'm going to talk with you in a moment about what it actually means for you. And you're probably even starting to put that together now, because I know you're like super intelligent. My audience is so switched on. But the other thing too is that the interventions that the people working under the funding model, so whether it's, I don't know, Medicare or work cover or TAC or, insurers or NDIS and things like that, by and large, usually those funders are prescribing what treatments the professional can use. So you have to be willing to work in a way that might perhaps go against your values. If you perhaps really believe in getting to root causes, for example, or you really believe in IFS, right? Things like that, or approaches that maybe take a little bit longer, or you've got to, you just know that therapy takes time, then number one, this is going to be hard for you to do because they're short-term models. And number two, it's going to be hard for you to do because you might not be able to use your strengths. You might not be able to use the modalities and the interventions that you know work for your clients, that you know are very effective, because they're just not recognised. So it means you're going to have to not do the things that you know work. You're going to have to go and use a different strategy or approach and do it for a limited period of time. Now, there are going to be practitioners that are cool with all of this, and that's great. That's great. If you are looking for work, if you're not wanting to be in private practice, then going and working at these organisations could absolutely be for you. And especially if your value is really around providing services to people who may not be otherwise able to access them, or maybe your values are around, loosening up bottlenecks in systems and things like that to improve access. all those kinds of things, and you really love short-term solution-focused evidence-based interventions, then these kinds of models are going to be fantastic for you, and you should absolutely go and check them out. As I said, they work for some, they don't work for everyone. And this episode today is not looking at that per se, it's looking at what do these free funding models mean for us as women with businesses. So thinking about, and they're just some of the things I brainstormed before I recorded this podcast, right? So thinking about that, let me share with you the pluses, the advantages. Let me share with you the other side, right? Because as you know, where any problem exists, a solution must also exist simultaneously. And there's law of duality, right? Meaning for every up there's a down, for a left there's a right, okay? So let me move into the other side of this. What I think is important for you to understand is there is space for everyone. There are going to be clients that really need those funded services. And as I said, those funded services have been around for eons. What we also know is that thriving, healthy, flourishing, beautiful, soul-led, heart-centered, genuine, authentic, profitable, if I didn't say it, private practices have also existed. You can have both things at once in the same community, right? In the same society. You absolutely can. There's space for everyone, all right? So historically, women running private practices haven't really been disadvantaged by new models coming out, new organisations coming out, and if you have a look at it, it doesn't even really matter if it's Labor or Liberal governments doing it. It's like a block of funding given out, the funding runs out, the next government gets in, the funding comes up again, and it's just repackaged with a different name and a different flavour, right? By and large, I know I'm being very reductionist here, but the thing is that these services have always existed, but so too have successful private practices. There's space for everyone. The thing that you get to lean into is that because you're not working under one of those funded models, you don't have the same restrictions, okay? They just don't apply. So this is in terms of how you practice, the modalities that you use, the therapeutic interventions that you choose to use for your client group, okay? So what you get to do here is you get to make informed, educated decisions, also based on your practice wisdom, if you've been in practice for a while and you've been working for a while, about the right supports, the right interventions, the right therapeutic modalities for your client sitting in that chair on that day at that time for their needs. You get to lean into your professional judgment and draw upon that bank of knowledge and wisdom and expertise and use that to inform how you're going to work with the client, how you're going to support them, how you're going to move them from where they are to where they want to be. That is why we do this work, okay? And the more experienced you get and the more knowledgeable you become and the more courses you do and the more skills you accumulate and the more wisdom you get as well, over time, you might start to find, as so many of us do, that you begin to use a more eclectic approach, really tailoring how you're working with each client. And you'll find that if you look back over all the clients you saw last month or something like that, that you didn't use the same approach with any of them, because you're just now naturally and organically taking this bit over here from ACT and that bit from positive psychology and that bit over there from CBT maybe, and that bit over there from mindfulness and that bit over there from walk and talk. And you're starting to now blend things, right? It's like, I'm going to say alchemy. It's like you're now alchemizing. If you don't like that word, alchemy, I love it because it to me, it conjures up, like I love spirituality, and it conjures up, somebody very carefully thinking, oh, well, we need a little bit of this element here and a little bit of that element there, and, making it up person by person. But it also reminds me of when I went to Paris. I forget when it was. Was it 2009? I think it was my very first international trip. Went by myself, went to Paris, and I found a perfumery. I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, so I'm sorry if you speak French and you know of this place, but I think it was called Fragonard. And I went in there, and it was a very bespoke little boutique perfumery. They made all their little own perfumes, but I was able to get a custom perfume. It was made just for me. And they did all these things. They tested my skin. They asked me what notes I really liked, what I didn't like, if I wanted it to be an evening scent or a morning scent, like what it was for, all these kinds of things. It was very, very involved. And then I got my own little bottle of perfume, and I saw the guy make it up. And he was just going, he had little glass droppers in all the bottles, and he had my little bottle, and he was saying, oh, 1 drop of this, and she'll need 3 drops of that and 2 of this. And I got my own little oil, right? I've still got that bottle. And it's so special to me, right? The perfume's often stale now, but I like to look at the bottle because it brings back the memory of somebody doing something that was just mine and just for me. People really respond to that. Your clients get better outcomes when you're customizing interventions that meet them where they're at, okay? There's so much evidence clinically that demonstrates that when we use a manualized approach, which is very normal, very conventional for evidence-based treatments like CBT, when you go and have a look at all the data on clinical evidence, you will find there's so much that says, oh, manual is the way to go. But I think that's just because there has been an absence of clinical research done on the value of tailoring, personalizing, customizing interventions on a person-by-person basis. And the reason for that is probably just very, like if I put my research hat on, it would just be because it's too hard to control. When you run experiments in psychology, sociology, things like that, you need to have an independent variable and a control variable, and that would just be really hard because you wouldn't know. So a control is like what you're measuring the independent variable against. So we don't do anything different with that group. And then you've got the variable group over here, and it's where you are tracking. But if you had a bunch of therapists that were all doing manualized interventions, and then you had a bunch over here that were making personalized approaches, it would be very hard to assess and measure and draw any important, significant, real conclusions, because it would just be impossible, because everybody would be doing different things because of the nature of it being personalized, right? But the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, okay? So people who are going to, like people in the community, the clients who go and use these services where they get the stuff without paying, are going to get one experience working over there. And that's going to be A-OK for a bunch of people. But we also know, the data also shows us, if you have a look at the number of counsellors in private practice, psychologists in private practice, things like that, who don't work under big funding models, and there are plenty of them, you also know that there are plenty of clients who don't want to do evidence-based, manualised treatment, short-term clinical type stuff. They want to come along and have more of the talk therapy, right? That supportive intervention where they get to have proper conversations that aren't formulaic, where they get to go deeper, unpack things, build relationships with their therapist, see the therapist for as long as it's going to take to shift them from point A to point B. Okay, so that's one of the values and that's one of the strengths, and that's definitely something that if you're worried about losing clients because now there's going to be more free services popping up, lean more into this, right? On your website, in how you speak and things like that. It's very important because there are clients looking for it. And if you're already in private practice, no doubt you have probably already experienced people coming to you saying things like, I previously went and saw I don't know, they might say a psychologist or a social worker on a mental health care plan, and it felt clinical, it felt cold, it felt clunky, I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel listened to, I didn't get to talk about my things. So that's why I'm here. That happens, okay? And it happens the other way too. Yes, there are also clients that go and see counsellors, for example, and, they might be working with the counsellor for a little while and then get a referral on a mental health care plan to go and see a psychologist that's completely different. And so they've got a contrast now, and they will say to the psychologist, oh, I really needed this stepped out, more clinical approach. So there's people for every camp, okay? The other thing too is that your clients will, and this is what I was just saying actually, but your clients will seek you out for modalities that aren't covered on rebated and free schemes, right? So if you're using a holistic approach, if you're using an integrative approach, right, all those kinds of things, people know that the government's not going to pay for that. They will seek you out for that, okay? All those kinds of things are very helpful for you to remember when the nervousness and the anxiety pop up around the competition, okay? The other thing too is that when we're thinking about, client attraction and how do we actually get clients, how do our clients find us? As you know, nearly all of our clients, even if they initially had a word of mouth referral, they're going to Google you, right? If they don't like what's on the website, they're not going to go ahead and book. So even if it was an initial word of mouth, they're still, by and large, checking you out. So thinking about how do clients find you, understanding that most of your clients find you through a Google search, clients will be looking for a couple of things here. We can kind of separate these out. So there will be clients that type into Google free counselling, free mental health services near me, bulk billing, mental health near me, things like that, right? Those clients aren't looking for your services. So you're not missing out. To say it another way, you're not offering what they're looking for. So they would never have been your clients anyway. So you're not missing out. Your clients aren't getting taken from you. Your business is not getting stripped bare of clients because of these free services, because your clients were never over in that cohort looking for that thing. The clients that you work with are looking for the way that you do your services, the packages you offer, the programs you offer, the way of working that you offer, your workshops, your courses, your subscriptions, your memberships, your things, right? They're specifically looking for ADHD counselling for mums of newly diagnosed neurodivergent children, right? That's what they're looking for. They're not typing in free counselling near me, okay? So remember that, because again, that can really, really help you. Some people are concerned that because it's free, clients that would normally have worked with them based on money alone would rather not pay them and go and get a free service. So let's break that one down a minute. I disagree. I think, here's why. I think if I've got the money and I've got the means and I want to go and work with your, soul-led, authentic, genuine, you made it for women like me in my situation, private practice. If I was wanting to work with you and then, down the road, another free service pops up, I'm probably not going to go there, and I'll tell you why. I'm not going to go there because I don't identify as needing the service. I'm not going to go there because I don't see myself as being part of that cohort with those presentations that maybe that service is dealing with. And I'm not going to go there because I don't want like a community-based service. I want a private service that's just for me, where I get personalized, support, where I feel special. I'm happy to pay for that, right? And where I can see somebody for as long as I want. I don't have to, watch the clock and count down my sessions and panic as I'm getting up to sessions 7, 8, and 9 of 10 funded sessions, right? And I understand that those people that are going for the free service probably need that free service. So that's fine. I just don't see myself as belonging there. So I'm going to go and find my private practice person, like my counsellor, my psychologist, my social worker, my play therapist. I'm going over there because that's my space, right? Do you see what I mean? So don't worry about, clients will go where it's free. That's not true. And again, these free mental health services have been around for a very long time, and at the same time, so have thousands of successful, profitable, beautiful, soul-driven, heart-led private practices, okay? The other thing to understand too, and again, there's more research about this. My screensaver keeps coming on. I've got so much to talk about today, don't I? Here I am. I'm just getting rid of my screensaver. Okay, so the other thing to understand, and again, there's more research around this, and you've heard me say about it before, and I know this is going to be triggering and all of the things, and so I'm just going to preface it by saying, yes, there are exceptions to the rule, right? But even if we think about our normal distribution curve, right, and it's got the standard deviations in it, you will see just a quick look at that, and you will see that by and large, most people don't benefit when they don't pay. You've heard me speak about this before in terms of marketing our businesses, right? You've heard me talk about this in relation to my experiences giving away free things and paid things in terms of the outcomes that people got. And just a recap if you're new here. So I've been in private practice for over 30 years now. And during that time, one way to get clients is to have the free thing on your website. And I noticed that when people were using the free things, so it was either on my website or maybe I was giving away free things in my community because it was on my heart to help people with a problem. And I would pour my heart and soul into making this freebie that I knew worked, that I knew was going to get the result that they were after, and I wanted to give it away free. I would often find that when I followed up with people, either they never opened it or they would open it and dismiss it. So they would just skim it, just skim the free thing and then dismiss it saying, I already know this, or they would not implement the thing, right? So that was happening. The number of times that I followed up on freebies that I was giving and asked people how they went with them and they did implement and they did get an outcome was minimal, okay? And honestly, I've had thousands of freebies downloaded over the years, believe you me. Back when I was first learning about marketing, and this was taught to me about, people don't value things if they don't have skin in the game. That was a shock. And I felt so uncomfortable about that. And I thought, no, that's not right, because there were so many years in my life where I was living in poverty, below the poverty line. And I did value free things. And I did use free things, and I did get good outcomes from free things. So I took offense when I first heard about this, but then it turns out it's an actual thing. And again, there's research behind it. And so for my own peace of mind, I decided that I was going to do my own experiment. And so I took my most popular free thing and I slapped a price ticket on it. I slapped a price ticket on it of $7. And I started selling it for $7. So I made it not available anymore as free. I turned it from free to paid, let everybody know I had it. If they wanted to get it, they could grab it. Now, what happened was not so many people downloaded it. There wasn't as much interest. However, the people that downloaded it and paid the $7, nearly all of them implemented it and nearly all of them got an outcome. It was the same PDF. So then I started doing more research and I'm starting to learn about different concepts like, like pricing things. So then again, I wanted to do my own experiment. So I took that same PDF that was originally free, that I was now charging $7 for, and I put $27 on it. And I let everybody know, hey, I've got this thing and it's, you can get it now and it's only $27 and here's what it's going to do and da-da-da-da-da. And guess what? People bought it. Everybody opened it. And nearly all of the people that opened it implemented, and of the ones that implemented, nearly all of them got an outcome. Interesting. So then I did it more, and this one PDF that had started off free ended up being sold for $97. And people were buying it. And I noticed that as the price point went up, so too did the outcomes, so too did the implementation, and so too did the lifetime value of a customer. Because when they implemented it and they got the result, they were back and they were either in my dashboard looking for the next thing, or they were emailing me and saying, what else have you got? Like, do you know what I mean? Or they were visiting my website looking for the next thing. It was the same PDF. And then I would go into, like the online communities, and I'd be talking about, not the PDF itself, but I'd be talking about perhaps, whatever it was the PDF was addressing and stuff like this, and what the issue was and how you can resolve it and stuff like that. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, the people that were saying that they were struggling, because I would have a question at the end of my post and would say, if you're struggling with this, let me know, drop an emoji, say me, or, something like that. I would do that, or I would run a poll and I'd get people just to tap if they were struggling with it or not on the poll. And it's all often, a lot of the time, the people who got the free stuff are generally the only ones who are still struggling with that same problem and still asking for help, even though the help was there and it was available. So what's this got to do with your private practice competing against a business that's providing the free mental health? In one way of looking at it, what is going to happen is, because you're not free, it means that clients are invested in getting an outcome. They're coming along to you, they're paying money from their pocket, they're more likely to show up, they're more likely to be engaged, they're more likely to do the homework, they're more likely to be a very active participant in the work that you do, and they're more likely to get a better clinical outcome, and even more so, they're more likely to maintain the gains that they've made as a result of the therapeutic work that they've done with you, compared to people who go to a free service. Now, I know it's going to be like jarring maybe to hear, and maybe for some of you this is new information, as some of you might be sort of nodding along and reflecting on your own experiences with giving away the free thing and the paid thing and stuff like that, or maybe even your experience as a client. But the research shows consistently that it doesn't matter how much someone pays. So I've got, for example, on Tuesdays, I noticed in one of my communities that people were often sending me private messages asking me for help with their private practices, but they weren't at a point yet where they were willing to or ready to or able to, whatever, I guess get like help, you know what I mean? Meaning do a course, get the $27 subscription for the tools and the resources, things like that. They weren't in that space yet. So what I did was I thought, okay, I will help them. And so I've carved out an hour of my time, which is such a big deal for me because you know how I feel about, my time. Anyway, I've carved it out. I've set it all up so they can come along, they can ask questions, get the support, all the things, but it's going to be $5. Now, it doesn't matter how much, right? I could charge $200 for them to come along to that. I could charge $500 for them to come along to that, right? It doesn't matter. But the thing is, as soon as there's a price ticket on it, the audience separates and you start to see, okay, these people over here, mostly, not all, consuming the free things or perhaps skimming the free things and not using, not implementing, are likely to still be in the same place 6 or 12 months from now, right? It's like sometimes when clients want to work with me, they might want supervision, or they might want business mentoring or business coaching or something like that. We'll talk about it and we'll talk about the fees. And then they will say, oh, I think I'll wait 12 months, And they're the ones who are still in the same space 12 months later, asking the same question that they were 12 months before. There's been no change. There's been no progress. They're still where they were. The other ones who have paid the money, whether it was the $5 or the $27, which is now $37, and if people didn't want to have the subscription, for example, for Booked and Better, and they just want to buy individual products as they become available, they can, but they're going to be between $147 and $197. Do you know what I mean? Like, the people that are paying are the ones that are getting better results. So remember that. And the other thing too is that, again, with the research also shows that the higher the price point of your thing, maybe it's a course or maybe it's, VIP retreat, a weekend retreat, doing something on, breath work or something like that, or your counseling sessions, and but there's evidence that shows that the higher the price point, even more improvements happen for the client, even more outcomes, even more results, even it's better, right? More engagement, more implementation, more asking questions, more motivation, all those kinds of things. So you can't just price yourself to infinity, obviously. There is a tipping point, there's a breaking point. But you will see that there is a correlation between results, commitment, engagement, implementation, all those kinds of things between, the fee and, all of that. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is to understand this so that you can anchor into the fact that your clients are here knowing they can get a free thing anyway. They're still here. They're still choosing to work with you. They're going to get a better outcome. You're going to give them a personalized intervention that they aren't able to get somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? And then so goes all of the benefits for you and for the client. So in that way, I don't see free services popping up as being a risk to your private practice at all. Okay. The other thing too is to maybe just like ground yourself into the fact that there's space for everybody. There is absolutely space for everybody. And just because somebody has a business over here or a practice over there doesn't mean a loss for you. Okay. You still get to do the things that you want to do, work in the ways that you want to work, help the clients that you want to work with, irrespective of what's going on around you. As I said, there's space for everybody. If you're feeling worried though, or you're feeling nervous or threatened or challenged or, what's going to happen to my business, if you're still in that space, I would say, and of course, this is a one-way conversation, right? It's just me talking to you. You can't talk to me because it's a podcast. But based on my experience, I would say that if you're still feeling fear after hearing all of this, it's probably because you're either just starting out, haven't found your feet yet, so totally normal, or it's because you don't have a niche. You're having like 8 different niches, saying that you're doing 8 different things, and you're worried. I would say if that's the case, we probably need to have a conversation so that we can sort it out for you, because that might be a little bit of a hiccup. Again, it's case by case basis, because, for example, if you're regional or rural and you're the only therapist in your area and stuff like that, then of course it makes sense. Do all the things if you're qualified and if it's within your scope of practice, for all of the age groups and stuff like that, fine. But if you're in a therapy dense area and there's lots of private practices and there's lots of mental health clinicians and stuff like that, then niching is going to be the way to build that practice the most quickly. And then 2, if you've got concerns around money stories, money mindset, limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, self-worth, all of those things, which again, totally normal, they're going to influence client attraction, client acquisition, how quickly you fill your diaries and how quickly you get from, the business costing you money initially to get going, through to break even, through to being in profit. So in those cases, of course, reach out and get some help. The help might be maybe having a conversation with me for 15 minutes and I can give you a few ideas of what to do, point you in the right direction if you're confused and you're not quite sure. It could look like, I don't know, maybe by and large you're tracking okay, but there are opportunities for improvement, in which case you might do better with this monthly subscription of the tools for private practices that make your practice better, meaning more efficient, improve client experience, all those kinds of things. Or if you're needing a little bit more personalized one-to-one support, maybe it's going to look like coaching or supervision or mentoring or something like that. There are so many ways for you to navigate what you may be experiencing as a threat to your private practice. Okay, there's lots of ways for you to be supported if you're open and ready to be supported. Okay, and you might not be at that point on your journey yet. You might still be at the point where you're happy and willing to try and figure it out on your own or try and figure it out with your supervisor. Okay, totally fine. Everybody's got a starting point of their journey. All right, so what I want you to take away from this, I guess, is don't be overly concerned. Okay, you have a private practice because you didn't want to work under all those restrictions and all those funding issues, and you don't want to be doing all of the free services and stuff like that. Okay, it's not necessarily your cohort. You like to work in different ways, making personalized supports for clients, and that's your strength. Okay, being the alchemist is your strength. Clients are willing to pay for that. They want to pay for that. They've tried the other things. Those other things didn't work. They didn't go far enough, deep enough. And so they're there. Don't hide because you think they're not going to want to work with you. It's not true. they do want to work with you. They're looking for you. Now is a time to really shine your light so that they can find you and get started, right? So that's that. Okay. In other news, just super quickly before we finish, everything's been going super well with Booked and Better. I'm so excited to release the next product that comes out on the 15th of September. It's only 2 weeks. I wish I could give it to everybody right now. They're absolutely going to love this. It's a total game changer for their private practice. It's going to be so much fun. So there's that. What else? We've had a bunch of women in Practice Momentum hit the 6-month mark now, and so exciting. One of the ladies that I was talking to recently was sharing with me that she had hit 5 figures in her business bank account. And that business bank account, she's like so excited about it. And that's after her expenses and her tax and everything. She's still like, and it's continuing to grow. And I was celebrating that with her, and I was saying, wow, do you remember when we first started working together back in February or March? No, she started in April, actually. She was an Easter starter. Do you remember where the practice was back in Easter? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes. And then she said to me, well, actually, guess what? Apart from that money that's in the business bank account, I've also got a separate account where I've already been putting away money for my tax and everything. So that's taken care of. And then I was celebrating that too. And then she said that she was excited because she's able to take 2 weeks off for the upcoming school holidays to spend them with her children. And I was so excited for her. And it's just amazing, isn't it? The turnaround that you can have in such a short space of time when you know the help's there. And not only that, you're getting the support around, I don't know, your own stuff, I guess, that's coming up in terms of not wanting to use a technique or a strategy or a process and things. And she did that. She's very active in Momentum. And I was saying to one of the new people who joined, was it last week or the week before, I said to her, ask questions, like ask me as many questions as you want any time, like. And she was apprehensive about asking the questions, I felt. And so I preempted it. I preempted her, nervousness around it. And I just said to her, listen, sometimes people don't want to ask questions, or they don't want to ask for help and things like this because they don't want to bother me, or, they want to make sure everybody else is getting the help and things like that. But the thing is, like, this is you and I working together 1-to-1. And the reality is the people who are getting these amazing results are the ones who are asking lots of questions. So the more questions you ask, the faster you get the results. How's that for a lovely reframe? But it's also true in my program. So anyway, I just wanted to share some little updates with you. Apart from that, Buddy's going really well. He went to the vet for his annual injection, and he got really nervous around the vet, and the vet said, oh, Buddy, I remember you. And I said, oh, do you know Buddy? And because I hadn't seen this vet before, and the vet said, yes. And he said to me, I was the one that, and he did the scissors cutting action with his hands. And I was like, oh, okay. So he did Buddy's little operation. Buddy kind of vaguely remembered that Stephen had done that. But eventually Buddy, he just kind of relaxed into it, and then everything was good when he realised that there was nothing less left to snip by Stephen. So he felt better then. And he's going for a walk with his dog walker in about 3 minutes. So I've got to stop this episode, get him, get his jumper on, get him harnessed up, all those kinds of things so he can go out with her. And just thank you so much for being part of my world. I really appreciate you. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions though, of course, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. All right, my lovelies, have a beautiful day. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Private Practice Podcast. So as you reflect on today's insights, imagine creating real success in your private practice without going down rabbit holes or exhausting yourself with business activities that don't move the needle. With Practice Momentum, you have push of a button help available on demand. It's like having an expert in your pocket ready to guide you whenever you need it. Visit brooklynstorm.com to discover how Practice Momentum can transform your approach to building a thriving practice. I'm Dr. Brooklyn Storm, and I'll see you next time as we continue exploring the mind, business, and spirit of private practice success.